Like, a lot of the people who are a part of the red pill community went through that, and that's how they ended up in the red pill community. But that said, I'm going to give a very unpopular opinion that might piss off some people, but I promise you, once I get to the end, you might actually understand exactly what I'm saying. Now, my unpopular opinion on this is...
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man whose sickness for the thickness prevents him from skinny dipping. He is also a man who may add skipping leg day to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I am here to speak on society, dating, and why some of y'all might be going for red flags, listening to red flags, or might be the red flag. Because, well, I feel like there's a whole lot of red on this one. And just like the red pen is to your exam paper, I am here to critique a lot of the stuff that is there, and I am here to ensure that I can at least try to set the record straight to some degree, because some of y'all might be losing your shit in some areas, and you know it's completely necessary that you crash out there, but in others it is completely unnecessary, or at least that's how I look at it. And I could be right, I could be wrong. Either way, I would like your feedback on it. And also, should you like the episode, should you not like it, should you have a different form of feedback, or should you have a potential topic or guest you'd like interviewed on this podcast, then you can always hit me up through the social media links. The DMs are always open, and I would be more than happy to get your feedback and handle it accordingly. Now, with that said, I do want to kick things off by clearing some of the for 2026 things that I have over here. Now, this is a street interview that I encountered not too long ago, where someone was busy asking a woman what she intends on cutting off for 2026 as far as potential mates are concerned. And this isn't in relation to the guys that she's going to cut off, but rather the attributes of some of those guys that she may look at and be like, you know what, I don't think we take each other very far. Now, this is a street interview that was done by the influencer known as Join Jockey, and she was at a club. She decided to interview some babe called Kate, and you know, Kate had some particularly interesting things to say. Now, I don't want to talk too much about it because a lot of my thoughts come after I let the video play, so without further ado...
Okay.
Hi Joy.
You look amazing.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna ask you a quick question. Since you're outside, I want you, and it's a new year. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year, baby.
So since it's a new year, I want you to tell me 5 things that a man will do this year that you'd cut them. Like, hawezi ingia kwa maisha yako.
Look at this. Somebody come look at this.
For example, if a man is always on people's DMs or on people's likes, they're cut.
If a man is flexing
money-wise, like hivyo venye watu
money-wise, drinks, how he has things and whatever he owns.
If a man does that,
yeah, I wouldn't go for that.
Okay.
That's a red flag for me.
Next.
How? And if a man is always with ladies every time,
Club.
Yeah, clubbing, road trips.
If a man is clubbing, they're cut.
No, always with ladies. You can club, but always with ladies everywhere.
A club number boys.
A club number boys.
Like,
but I can't be with a guy mwenye acha nikwambie siku hizi mabeshte madem anakuwa nini?
Facts. Do that.
Anakuwa friends with benefits. So
Facts.
If a man is always talking about his exes, baby mamas,
they're cut.
Ambia kuhusu exes wako ni do.
Okay. Pretty interesting takes that were given, or at least particularly interesting opinions that were given there. Now, I'm not gonna lie, like, one of the things that I've always found to be very odd is this whole thing of, you know, like, I find a guy that likes babes posts on IG to be a red flag. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, I'm probably the one that's misinformed or I don't understand it, but what's so wrong with it? Like, all I'm doing is validating the fact that a good photo was taken, or at least that a good piece of content is in front of me. So why is that suddenly a big issue? Like, I've never really understood it. The DMs one I can get, like that you're actively trying to reach out to like babes here and there, and you're like, oh yeah, hey, like that could imply some level of emotional, infidelity and all. But liking the photos though, I don't know, I feel like that one's usually a bit of a stretch. But anyways, that's just me. Maybe I'm just, like not paying full attention, or I don't understand what women go through. But okay, let's look at the things that she said. One, guys who are flexing. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but if you are trying to look for a long-term relationship or some sort of a long-term thing with someone, then going for a guy who's flexing is probably about the dumbest idea that you can have. Like, let me try and put it like this. Usually guys that are in the club flexing do roughly about the same things that babes who are in the club with a wig, lashes, a bunch of makeup and a short dress are doing. They are trying to attract your attention. And more often than not, if you're looking at them as red flags, then there's a pretty good chance that you're not the target audience here. They want to show to everyone in the club that is interested in that, or them, or that kind of lifestyle, that they are doing great, that they are doing better than probably whoever it is that's giving them attention. Normally that will attract some level of attention from some babes that will probably want something short term. Even those guys aren't trying to find a long-term babe by popping bottles at the club. If they're looking for a babe, it's usually for a short-term thing. So I feel like this one was fairly self-explanatory. Then there's the one where the guy is always with women, and okay, I feel like at worst, the guy probably isn't interested in you because he plays against the home team. Not that I'm saying every gay guy just chills with women, but quite a number of them do. Just saying. But on the other hand, sometimes, like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it could just be a good platonic friendship. And I say this because I have a number of female friends, and all throughout, like, my adult life, I have had female friends. Now, it's not like I've been trying to shag every single female friend that I have, and it's not like me chilling with them means that I am a red flag in any way, shape, or form. Although granted, that's for, whoever it is that's on the other side to actually say it. But I've had instances where I've gone to a place or for like an event and I just have bare babes with me. And the thing is, guys might look at me and be like, oh shit, you're the nigga that rolls around with multiple babes. But the truth of it is, all of them are my friends. It's not like they're gonna go home and give it to me. So maybe if you're saying that, it's a guy who rolls around with multiple babes and it's usually not the same babes all the time, maybe at that point you can probably argue that maybe that guy is a hoe. But for the most part, like, having female friends isn't a problem. If women can say that they're comfortable having male friends, then I guess it should also be fairly okay for a guy to have female friends, right? But anyways, I don't want to belabor this point too damn much. So the other thing that she said was a guy that always talks about their exes. Now, I feel like by the time you're ending up with a guy who's constantly talking about a single ex, and most likely the most recent ex, that's most likely a guy who hasn't healed. And if you want to stick with a guy who hasn't healed, like, that's entirely up to you. I'm not saying that it's a great idea, but like, by the time you're dealing with that, you can clearly see that there's some unresolved feelings over there. But if you really feel like you should be with a dude, then that's entirely up to you. Although I feel like that bit is fairly self-explanatory. If he's always talking about exes, like multiple women, then for him it's just reliving his glory days. I don't think such guys are usually worth about all that much. Because, like, the guy will probably only talk about as much as he has content, of which, not unless if dude was dating a babe for like 7 years, I feel like a lot of his stories are gonna run dry at some point if you date him for long enough. But as always, it's good to just bring up the fact that you find it a bit of an issue, the fact that this person is just talking about the exes all the time. And, maybe the person realizes that there's an issue and they might actually change. Sometimes all someone needs is just a little bit of information on, what they might be doing wrong, and they can make some very positive changes. But all in all, I don't really think there's anything that major that I saw with this, or at least that I heard, that I feel is something that is very controversial. I feel like a lot of these ones are fairly straightforward, save for maybe the one where like the guy chills with women a lot. But anyways, that one's just me. I could be wrong, but I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. And this one's gonna be a particularly interesting one. It involves me talking about the red pill community and the fact that in some ways, in as much as people may hate them, they may not necessarily have existed out of nowhere, and the fact that to some degree they might not be all 100% bad as far as their ideals are concerned. But now let me just start this from the beginning. So I'm scrolling on Reddit one day and I stumble across this post where the guy had titled it Andrew Kibe and his Manosphere, and it kind of talks about the red pill community / the Manosphere, depending on what it is that you want to call it, and how he feels like it's such a big issue for a lot of young guys. And after reading it and after reading some of the comments, I kind of got hit by a bit of an epiphany. But anyways, before I can get to the epiphany, let me just read what the post said. So it says, and I quote, "I had a conversation with my Gen Z half-brother. He's 25 years old, a recent college graduate, and he's spewing the manosphere ideas of Andrew Kibe and Andrew Tate. He is convinced women are bad because his girlfriend broke up with him. I already warned him that treating a woman like a doormat is not going to work. He doesn't have a solid job, but he keeps getting online gigs. Sometimes he makes a lot of money, other times he has nothing. However, he spends most of his time watching Manosphere websites. I think the likes of Kibe will destroy this generation. A man has to be vulnerable with his emotions and with his woman, but he has to find the right woman to do this for. It's not that black and white. Women are not all bad and men are not all bad. Social media is not real life." End quote. Okay, now, dude has spewed quite a bit of facts there, especially towards the end, although I do have some thoughts about it. But before I can get to those thoughts, let me first look at some of the comments. So one of the comments I actually liked was actually one of the top ones. So it said, and I quote, "Gen X had wealth and MLM gurus, millennials had spiritual gurus and cons. Gen Z has masculinity and femininity gurus and coaches. Andrew Kibe and Andrew Tate are both scammers." End quote. I looked at that, it was like, you know what, it seems like a generational cycle thing, so this is the one that's hitting for Gen Z, and it actually does make sense. So on to the second one, which I found interesting. It said, and I quote, "The funny part about this is that him following Kibe and Tate is a wonderfully bright red flag for any sensible, and to use their stupid terms, high value woman. So anyone with a good head on their shoulders and self-esteem will avoid him like the plague. So he will be stuck dating women who either know how to attract value and money from these kinds of guys, young, inexperienced women who with time will realize and leave him, or toxic women who will match his vibe. That's why these men have endless stories validating their worldview, because they self-select out of the normal dating pool." End quote. And okay, dude kinda has a point. Actually, dude definitely has a point. A lot of women that I talk to nowadays, whenever I mention Andrew Kibe or Andrew Tate, like they really cringe and they're like, "Oh my goodness, do you follow these guys? Do you talk about these guys? Like, do you really listen to what they say? Like, what are your thoughts on it?" And the moment you show that you're a supporter, they write you off so quickly in their minds that anything that you do after that is considered pointless. I kid you the hell not. Like, I have seen this happen many, many times. I usually have a WhatsApp sticker of Andrew Kibe, and I'll always throw it there every so often. And usually, like, the next message that comes from a babe who's seen that sticker is usually something in the lines of, "Oh, are you a fan of Kibe? Oh, how can you have this?" And it's usually so interesting whenever I see it. But is that entirely true? Okay, the part about being a bright red flag, yes. But does that mean that they'll only end up finding women who want to extract value, young and inexperienced women, or toxic ones? For the most part, it is very possible. There's a lot of guys that go through the red pill community and they do end up with multiple stories like this, because in a lot of cases, you kind of attract things that, tend to match your personality quite a bit, and this is one of those instances. So you find such a guy bagging a babe like that. And yes, is the extraction of value and resources there? I tend to see that quite a bit. But a lot of times they will always bring up this whole bit where they're like, oh, this babe wasn't this, wasn't that. And when you listen to the dude's story, it's like, oh, the babe just got tired of this guy and either decided to get someone else while this guy was still thinking that they were still a thing, or they just decided to move on, or they cheated on them with some other dude. Like, it's stories like this that you'll hear quite a bit. Now, does that mean that like everything that's said in the red pill community is bad? I don't know. I'm about to get on that in a little bit, but it is something that does happen. Then on to the next comment, which says, and I quote, "As a Gen Z, I feel like Andrew Kibe's hostility towards women often comes across as forced rather than constructive. Instead of sounding like a balanced critique, it feels more like unresolved personal experiences being projected onto an entire agenda. When criticism is rooted in personal hurt, it loses credibility and turns into generalization rather than insight." End quote. And I totally agree with this. As someone that was, and I'll admit this, a little bit of a fan of Kibe when he started because he was very entertaining. He's kind of had a run, and I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But anyways, that could just be me. Maybe he's gotten better. I don't know. Now, on to the last comment before I give my thoughts. It says, and I quote, "This sounds less like a masculinity issue and more like heartbreak mixed with online content that pushes blame and anger. The real problem is not confidence, but being taught to blame others instead of learning self-control, stability, and personal growth." End quote. Now, I agree with the first part where what it sounds like is heartbreak mixed with online content, but the other bit about the real problem, like being taught to blame others instead of self-control, I don't know, I don't entirely agree with it, mainly because I think the whole bit about learning self-control, stability, and personal growth isn't usually what is required after a situation like that. It's like the next thing after whatever it is that you're supposed to have there. But anyways, comments aside, now my thoughts on the entire thing, I believe that what the guy said was true, but I feel like at the same time, a lot of what the 25-year-old half-brother was kind of, really looking up to and following made sense for the period or the phase in his life that he's in right now. Okay, not necessarily the phase in his life that he's in, but for the situation that he's currently in. And I say this because dude broke up with his girlfriend. And more often than not, you might find that, this was probably his first girlfriend or his first proper love, or the first opportunity he's ever had to be in a relationship, and it didn't turn out pretty well, or, the ending was very nasty, and so he ended up there. Or he ended up just kind of getting there and then kind of ended up just being sucked deep. Like, when you look at the situation that the guy is in, a lot of the red pill content, a lot of the stuff that is said on the red pill, or at least on like red pill content creators platforms and all, kind of makes sense to the situation that he's in, because a lot of it speaks to that kind of guy, the guy that has lost his babe because the babe cheated on him, or that was dumped by his babe and yet the guy gave everything. Like, a lot of that content will cater to that sort of negative feeling that he's feeling right now. So I can definitely understand why the guy would choose to go down that path. So even the bit where some commenter was busy mentioning the fact that he was really like getting into it because of the heartbreak, not necessarily because of masculinity, was actually right. Like, this is like those times when a babe has been dumped or a babe has been taken through character development and they start talking about how niggas ain't shit. Like, like Nairobi men will humble you, blah, blah, blah. Fuck men, I'm tired of Nairobi men. I want to get men from elsewhere. I would much rather foreign dude. Like, it's basically more or less the same thing, but now as a community plus a couple of other bits here and there that might be thrown in. Like, that's exactly what this situation looks like. So, can I say that it's entirely bad? No. I feel like it's a comfortable solace for the situation that he's in. And, it's almost like, I don't want to say like-minded or a likened opportunity as far as it goes, but like a lot of the people who are a part of the Red Pill community went through that, and that's how they ended up in the Red Pill community. But that said, I'm going to give a very unpopular opinion that might piss off some people, but I promise you once I get to the end, you might actually understand exactly what I'm saying. Now, my unpopular opinion on this is, while we may talk about whether the red pill is good or bad, the red pill community is necessary as it is a response or a reaction to the environment that a lot of guys are in. And I know there's someone that's already starting to get pissed off, but let me just explain. This is something that I believe is very necessary, not because it's a good thing, but because it is a reaction, or what some people might even look at as a trauma response, to a lot of guys that have gone through a lot of shit from the opposite sex. And because of the shit that they've gone through, they have ended up joining the red pill community so that they can, you could probably say, compare notes and kind of look at what's there, what it is that they have experienced, and sort of try to learn in a way that would make it seem as though this is the right way of having to deal with things, this is the situation, and this is how we probably should have handled it. Now, is the methodology and the solution going to be particularly correct? No, not really. Not entirely, at least. But how they are doing it is in response to things that they've seen, because it's not like red pill guys are pulling everything out of their ass. A lot of the stuff that they talk about does actually come from some level of experience, whether shared, whether individual, or whether someone else's. And these experiences are in relation to a situation or an environment that a lot of these guys have experienced quite a bit, or at least once in their lives. And the reason I say this is because the red pill community actually started a lot further back than some people might actually think. Now, of course, for those of you all that are about to be like, oh, the red pill is something that started from the Matrix, yes, the whole idea of the name, or at least the idea behind the name, did come from the Matrix, which did come out in 1999. But the red pill community, in what it was formed from, actually started around about 2013-2014. The formation of the group actually came after the release of the book The Rational Male, which was written by Rollo Tomasi, and it kind of gave this whole detail about the reality for a lot of men, or at least the reality that a lot of men have faced as far as dating is concerned. And as such, because a lot of men did resonate with that, they did kind of start to get to this point where, as per the book, you become red pill, you become aware of, what some people might refer to as female nature, but, more or less a lot of how they've been treated and what might be driving that. So as a result, the red pill community formed, but it didn't come into prominence or become particularly popular until the late 2010s and the early 2020s. So this was somewhere around 2018, 2019, 2020. And if you look at that period of time, it coincides with a bunch of things that could drive a bunch of guys towards the direction of the red pill community. So if you want to look at some of the more general things that happened to a lot of people, there was the online Me Too movement, there was the body positivity movement, which, wasn't really something that affected them, but the Me Too movement came up, men are trash, niggas ain't shit, women choosing to have a whole phase became a thing during that time. Like, all of those things combined did put in a situation where a lot of guys just didn't get what it is that they thought they would get whenever they would reach out and try and go for women. And as such, the red pill community grew as a result of the ill treatment that a bunch of these guys had gone through. So around this time, people were also realizing something else. One, a lot of good men were suffering while the bad boys seemed to be getting all the action. And by that I mean there's a guy that is trying to be good, trying to be nice, he's listening to the woman, or you could just say the men that are listening to the women that are trying to be nice to them didn't seem to be getting as much action as the guys that were the bad boys, that were the crappier dudes, that wouldn't treat women as well. And these not so great guys would document that shit and show the world that, your babe that you're doing all of this good for is still giving it to me, and I ain't giving her shit. I'm treating her like trash. And these women were perfectly okay with it. Like, they didn't seem to have too much of a problem with this entire thing. And so as a result, some guys kind of did feel like something broke in them. On top of that, there was this attraction to materialism that became a lot more apparent with social media. So they realized that, you know what, these babes seem to gravitate towards the guys that had the nice expensive cars, or just the nice cars, the nice places, live the rich life. Around this time, Dan Bilzerian was basically at his peak, or at least was just coming off of his peak. So a lot of guys would look at someone like Dan Bilzerian and they're like, you know what, that guy is probably pulling babes because he looks the way he is, but more so because he has the kind of money that he's showing on camera. And then last but not least, social media proliferation was at an all-time high, and people were just soaking up this content. At the same time, and this was around about the time when COVID was hitting, people were realizing how all of the old systems, or most of the old systems that they could have relied on, just weren't working. And as such, new systems were forming. Remote working was becoming a thing, online contractual work was becoming a thing. So when the old systems failed and these ones seemed to continue, a lot of these young guys were like, you know what, maybe we should go there. You can definitely make money while you're just sitting chilling at home, working remotely, and you don't need to have an annoying boss. And as such, a bunch of these guys went in there. And so now we have the red pill community, much as it's mostly dwindled. There's people that still do complain about it, because there's a lot of young guys that are still being sucked into it, in as much as the community itself has actually dwindled quite a bit over the years. And so at this point, you'd want to look at how you can get rid of it, or how you can resolve the issue that the red pill community seems to be stuffing itself into. And honestly, I believe there's a social way to handle this and there's a personal way to handle this. The social way to handle this is, and I know this one is going to sound like an absolute dream, like it's going to sound like I am high on something, but for those of y'all that think that it's possible, I'm just gonna tell it to you. We need to tell the women, or at least the women are going to need to start rewarding the good guys for being good guys. Like the guy that takes you on dates, the guy that treats you well, let that be the guy that gets the goods, not the guy that will talk to you some type of way, he isn't contributing shit. Like, if these guys see that you being treated well is how they get to bag you, then they will treat you well. If you take the money out of the equation as far as attracting you is concerned, then guys will stop paying attention to the money as much. Don't get me wrong, we'll still try to get it, but we'll stop paying as much attention as a lot of people are right now. So that's on the social side. On the personal side, I will tell any guy that is a part of the red pill community, go ahead and continue listening. There's nothing wrong with you having an opinion on something, but after you've done all the listening, after you've been told whatever it is that you've been told by that content creator, go out into the world, touch some grass. And by touch some grass, I mean go talk to people, listen to what it is that people say, and look at how people are acting. If you're not being selective with the information that you're taking in, you realize over time that a lot of the information that is being pushed through the red pill community just doesn't entirely hold up. Then, after getting to that point, you will find the happy medium between getting the good advice, or at least the advice that's good from the red pill community, and some positive, more crucial advice that you can get from elsewhere, and kind of strike a happy balance that will help you become a much better person. And maybe I could be right, or maybe there's entire bullshit around this. But either way, let me just conclude by saying that the best way to fight or to get rid of the red pill community isn't to speak negatively about it or shut the people who follow it down. The best way to actually resolve the issue or get around it is to show that there's a much better alternative that isn't the red pill community, and make sure that that's the most successful side. Usually people like to chase success, and the moment they realize the red pill community isn't working for them, they will switch over in a heartbeat. Although, then again, maybe I could be wrong about this, maybe I could be right, maybe I don't entirely understand the red pill community, or, maybe I'm making a dumb take by saying they're necessary. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the breaktime podcast. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.